Hello, everyone, and welcome to our peer-to-peer session, Get Funded 2026 New Bedford Creative Grant Programs. My name is Hendrik Hernandez Resto. I am the Creative Specialist at New Bedford Creative. Thank you for joining us today. Before I go any further, please enter your first and last name in the chat along with your emails for our records. Thank you. This peer-to-peer series is geared to enrich, educate, and connect creatives within our community. New Bedford is the home of artists, creatives, changemakers, designers, entrepreneurs, and community enthusiasts. The peer-to-peer sessions embraces the pulse that makes New Bedford so unique while also expanding our knowledge and connections. New Bedford Creative offers many opportunities for artists and cultural organizations. Join our creative directory, apply to one of our grants, or call for arts. List your event on our calendar, all for free, at our website, newbedfordcreative.org. Peer-to-peer sessions is supported in part by the City of New Bedford's Arts, Culture, and Tourism Fund, facilitated by New Bedford Creative at the New Bedford Economic Development Council, which receives support in part from the National Endowment for the Arts, a federal agency. We would like to thank Mayor John Mitchell, his administration, and the entire New Bedford City Council for their continued support of the creative sector. Additional support is provided by Barr Foundation, Bristol County Savings Bank, and South Coast Community Foundation. Before I introduce our presenter, I want to go over the format for this session. Once we finish, we will open up for Q&A. I will review the questions in the chat first, and then we can continue on with the Q&A live. We will have about 20 minutes for questions so we can wrap up on time by 1:30 p.m. Just so everyone is aware, this session will be recorded. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat so we don't miss them when we open up. Most sessions throughout this series have been and will be recorded and can be found on our YouTube channel at New Bedford Creative in the following week. I will now pass it over to Margot Saunier to share more details of who we are and what we will present for you today. Go for it, Margot. I am muting myself.
It is a pleasure to see everyone here today, and Hendrik and I are in the same room, so we are trying not to have an echo happen here. For any future sessions, you can do these on Zoom or in person here at the New Bedford Economic Development Council at 1213 Purchase Street. We are in the second floor conference room, and that is all in New Bedford. So today, we are going to be talking about the New Bedford Creative Grant Programs, Wicked Cool Places, and Art is Everywhere. And these are for projects taking place in the city of New Bedford in 2026. The application will go live this week on Thursday, September 25th. And the deadline is Monday, November 10th by 11:59 p.m., like before midnight. So I'm going to ask Hendrik to share your screen, please. And we will begin. The press release is going out this week announcing these grant programs, and the easiest way to get to the submittable.com grant portal is to go to our website, newbedfordcreative.org, click on grant programs. You can get it from the menu up above or right there, the button, and it'll bring you to our grant program page. We are running a few. Today we're talking about Art is Everywhere and Wicked Cool Places, but I also want to take this time to mention that we also have the Artist in Residence program open right now for the New Bedford Whaling National Historical Park, and that you can also access through our website. That deadline, as it says here, is on Monday, December 1st, 2025 by midnight. So just a point for those artists who are watching this or here today to keep that in mind. And then soon we'll have the open call for art for Seaport Art Walk, all that you can access by this page. So however you access, you can, click here to apply. Hendrik, don't click yet. You can scroll down, and there's usually this other in the blue bar right here, NBEDC's online application portal on Submittable. That's another way. So any of these ways you can click to get to our online portal, which Hendrik, you already have up. So if you go to that page, once you click on it, it'll bring you to this if you have a submittable account already. If you don't, it's free to sign up for a submittable.com account and then just come back to our NBEDC page on Submittable, and you'll want to click on the FY26 NB Creative Grant Programs, Wicked Cool Places, and Art is Everywhere. So as you'll see, we do have our guidelines on here, and we are awarding funding from 1,500 to 10,000 to support projects of various scales. And eligible applicants include individuals, nonprofits, community groups, and for-profits. So we will fund just about anyone, basically. And some grant programs, you have to be a 501c3 nonprofit in order to apply. That is not the case for our grant program. So I welcome individuals, groups, or companies. You can be a for-profit company if you are doing a project in the city of New Bedford that's going to benefit the residents, visitors, and other businesses, then this may apply to you. So the biggest qualifier here is stating the obvious, but your project must be based in New Bedford, Massachusetts. And I do need to say this because we have had applications in the past that have had one component in New Bedford and other components in other towns or cities. That is not going to score well with our independent review committee. The entire project needs to take place within the city of New Bedford. And when you get to the application, you're going to have two options. Art is Everywhere supports projects that address pressing issues faced by New Bedford's residents, visitors, and businesses using an arts, culture, creative approach for a solution. So that is Art is Everywhere. Wicked Cool Places supports projects that create or sustain vibrant, welcoming spaces that attract activity and foster community involvement benefiting New Bedford's neighborhoods. And for people who have heard this term before, placemaking or placekeeping, those projects are Wicked Cool Places. So placemaking or placekeeping. And we will provide definitions of those in a moment. Priority consideration is for projects that advance equity, celebrate diversity, ensure inclusiveness, and promote open access to the arts or culture. And I do want to thank our funders again. The majority of the grant funding is through the City of New Bedford's Arts, Culture, and Tourism Fund. And then we do have additional funding provided by Bristol County Savings Bank, the Leonard and Hilda Kaplan Charitable Foundation, Mass Cultural Council, and that is specifically through Mass Cultural Council's Cultural District Initiative, and then the Shraft Charitable Trust and South Coast Community Foundation. So, deadline again, Monday, November 10th. If you have questions, Hendrik is available to answer those questions. So after today's information sessions, feel free to reach out to Hendrik if you have specific questions. And then now, this is also available in Spanish. So we, meaning not me, because I am not a Spanish speaker, but Hendrik will be doing another information session in Spanish for our Spanish speaking community. So once you've gone through all of the guidelines, you scroll all the way down and then you can begin your application. For those of you who have applied for our grant programs in the past, you will be very happy because for the first time in years, we are doing a one-step grant application. In the past, we'd have two phases. You'd have to fill out an eligibility questionnaire in phase one, then you'd have to wait 24 to 48 hours for us to move you into phase two. And this year, we've combined it all into one application. So we hope it will be easier and more straightforward. And if anyone has any last minute ideas on November 10th, they could actually fill out the application before midnight that day. So the first part of this is your standard contact information. So we want your first name, last name, and email, phone. The website is optional because we know that not everyone has a website. However, you might want to put a second social media, or if you have a LinkedIn, or for artists who don't have their own website but might have a profile on our creative directory, for example, which is free and easy to do, that would be where you would put the website information. And then we do have social media, which is required. If you don't have social media, please email Hendrik and we will tell you what to put instead. The next one is the name of your business or organization and the address of your business or organization. And this is all going to be required for us. And then finally, in the contact info section, if you are applying as an organization or a company, you want to put your executive director or your CEO, whoever is the head of your organization or company, and if even if it's the same person filling out the application, we want to make sure that we capture that for our records. So here, Hendrik is not the CEO of our company, so we would put Derek Santos, who is our executive director. So the telephone number, again, even if it's the same, please fill out the telephone and email, because once we start getting, anyway, there's a lot of reasons for that. I'll go into them later. And then before you get to the actual, what I would call the application part, the part that everyone is going to be scored on, we have a couple questions. So did you or your organization receive a 2025 New Bedford Creative Grant? And that's for both Wicked Cool Places and Art is Everywhere. If you didn't, you click no, you move on. If you click yes, then we need to know if you've completed your final report. So final reports were sent out a couple weeks ago to those grant recipients, and the answer is yes, you've completed it, no, and you received an extension, or no, and I need to contact New Bedford Creative and ask for an extension. And then we have directions there. It's required for projects in 2025 it's required for grant recipients in 2025 to complete your final report in order to receive future funding from our organization. And many of you who might be listening or watching and have already completed your final report, so should be no problem at all. Now, we're going to go into the project information. So here's where this whole section below that we'll be reviewing will be scored by an independent review committee. So I want to make it very clear that no one from the New Bedford Economic Development Council or New Bedford Creative is a program at the EDC. None of us score applications at all. We have an independent review committee. They are mostly residents of New Bedford, and work in the community in some way at various capacities. And every year, the review committee changes. We might have some people who review again, but we make a concerted effort to switch out our review committee so that the same people are not scoring applications year to year. This is a great opportunity for me to invite anyone who would be interested in scoring applications to contact either myself or Hendrik, because each year we always look to add a few people to that list. Okay, so this is an independent review committee. We have a rubric where each section gets 4 points. For a total of 20 points would be the highest score in your narrative, community benefit, lead artists or organizations, partnership, planning, timeline, and budget. So those 5 categories. So here we're going to go through and pretend we're filling this out. The project title, aha ciphers, and we want you to use a concise and descriptive title for your project. And for the first time, we are keeping it under 120 characters because we did receive some very long titles, and want to make it a little shorter this year. So a clear, engaging title helps the reviewers quickly understand your project. Your project location, if you know exactly where it's going to be, I would say, in addition to Co-Creative Center, you would put 137 Union Street in New Bedford, Massachusetts, 02740. So that you know exactly where it's going to be. If you don't have the exact address, and for some of you, you're using multiple locations, so you do want to put a comma or a semicolon in between each and list them all out. You can, if it's at, you know, Riverside Park, or Hendrik's writing in Custom House Square, make a list, and that will be fine so that we know in what area of New Bedford it's going to be. So the next part of that, of the project locations, is permissions and permits. So do you need the property owner permission? Is it required for you to have property owner permission? And or are permits required from the City of New Bedford? If you are doing your project on public property that is city owned, then permits are usually required. So if you have a question about that, we are happy to help to put you in contact with the appropriate people in the City of New Bedford. So for example, the Parks Department, so if you're at a park or the beach, so Parks, Rec, and Beaches Department has a separate, you know, special event permit and way that you would get approval for your project. You know, if you were doing it downtown, but not like Custom House Square is an official park, so that would go through the Parks Department. Wings Court is not a park, so that'd be going through the regular DPI special events project. It's okay if you don't know, but you need to know by the time you fill out this application. So again, we will put you in touch with the appropriate people. If you do have need property owner permission or permits, we are asking you to upload a letter of approval and or a list of permits. You don't have to have the permits approved. Like, we understand that is impossible in some cases to do before November 10th, but we do want to know that you know what permits you need. And if you've done this in the past, if this is a repeat performance or festival or event, and you've received permits in the past, it's always good to upload those so that the reviewers see that you are reliable for getting the right permissions to make your project a success. So the upload and list of permits, you can upload up to 2 files. We didn't make this one, so it can be one can be a letter from the owner, the other can be a list of permits. If you want to put them in one document in one PDF, that's fine too. And then all of these different file types are allowed. So it's all different types of Word documents or photos. Hendrik is highlighting them there. So that takes care of the location part of this application. And we're going to scroll down. Here's where you're going to be scored. So the narrative part is up to 400 words. And your opening sentence needs to indicate which grant you are applying for. Wicked Cool Places or Art is Everywhere. So the, insert project title, project is designed for support from, and then you choose one, Wicked Cool Places or Art is Everywhere. And Hendrik just did, two sentences. Mm-hmm. But you do not want to do 2 sentences. You want to do between 300 and 400 words. I mean, if you can do it in 200, that's great. You want to clearly outline your project description. This is what you would do here. Now, if you are applying to Art is Everywhere, you would be answering the question, what challenge or pressing issues does your community or the City of New Bedford currently face, and what arts, culture, or creative approach does your Art is Everywhere project offer as a meaningful solution? That's the question you are answering here. If you choose Wicked Cool Places, it's how does your project use placemaking or placekeeping to directly involve and or impact residents, visitors, and or businesses in New Bedford's neighborhoods? And refer to these definitions. So placekeeping is the active care and maintenance of a place and its social fabric by the people who live and work there. It is not just preserving buildings, but keeping the cultural memories associated with a locale alive while supporting the ability of local people to maintain their way of life as they choose. And then the definition of placemaking that we use is with community-based participation at its center. An effective placemaking process capitalizes on a local community's assets, inspiration, and potential, and it results in the creation of quality public spaces that contribute to people's health, happiness, and well-being. And this can be an activation. It can be public art. I mean, there's lots and lots of examples now that we've been doing this for several years that you can find on the grant programs website. We have every single project we've ever funded in these 2 categories listed under on our website. So after you've done the narrative, the next part that you are scored in is your community benefit. So again, you have a maximum of 400 words to describe your project's impact on the community and answer the following questions. 1, how does your project benefit the community? 2, who are the specific participants or intended audiences? And 3, how is your project driven by and designed for a diverse population, such as youth, and/or elderly residents, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, LGBTQ plus individuals, people with disabilities, immigrants, those for whom English is a second language, armed service veterans, and others. This is just an example of, and we have seen this over and over again. If you say your project is for all of New Bedford, it's not going to get a high score. So be specific of, and you know what? Your project may be intended for all of New Bedford, but how are you going to get that message out to the community in which you want to benefit? So the more specific and detailed you can be, the higher score that you will receive in this section. So I think that's all I'm going to say about that right now, but let's move on. Okay, so lead artists and/or organizations. So this is where you want to describe the qualifications of key artists or individuals and/or organizations leading the creative or cultural component of this project. So we highly recommend that you first list the names and affiliations and then follow with brief biographies or descriptions of the main project leaders. So in some cases, this might be one person. It might be multiple people. If you are working with a community group, you want to list your community group members or at least the leaders of your group. For organizations, you want to list the people who are directly involved if you have staff or board members or volunteers. Who are the leaders of your project? And that's for number 6. Number 7, partners and I almost started. I almost started trying to talking in Spanish, which I cannot do. Okay, so here you you want to list all of the additional partners involved in the project, and this can be individuals, community groups, organizations, or companies, and describe how they contribute to the success of the project. So again, like do the list first, because especially if you have a lot of partners, don't start with descriptions first. Do the list so the reviewers see, oh, they have 5 partners, or oh, they have 2 partners. Now, for some projects, you might only need a couple partners and that's it, and that's what makes sense. For others, you might need more partners. As long as you describe how they contribute to the success of your project, you'll be great. Okay. The final is planning, timeline, and budget. So we separated planning and timeline from budget. And for the planning and time, but you are scored on these together. So I want to make it clear. You get 4 points for planning, timeline, and budget. That's one section of being scored. So for planning and timeline, we just want to list month by month of the activities to implement your project, and they should take place from January through December 2026. So we have an example here, but yours might look different. You may have a lot of activity in 1 or 2 months, not the whole year, but we do want your pre-planning, your actual project time, and then post-project in this section. So that's planning and timeline. Moving on to budget. For the first time ever for us, everyone's filling out the same budget. In the past, you've uploaded a file, we've provided a template. Here, everyone's going to fill out the same thing. So we have provided a list of expenses and which you cannot change. And so, but you can change the cost. So if you have artist presenter fees, let's say, okay, so Hendrik has 500. So in your notes section is where you want to describe, like, how many is that, 2 times 250? Does it 10 at 50? Like, you want to describe, uh put descriptions here in your project materials. What materials is it? Is it for, okay, so speakers, mics, all different kinds of things that you need for your project. Any kind of rentals, again, explain. And for some of you, these sections might be 0 because it's not applicable, and just put NA for not applicable if you're going to put 0. Other types, we have venue costs. This could be a rental or other venue costs associated if you have to rent, I don't know, if you have to rent the speakers, you have to rent lighting equipment, whatever it is. And then transportation. Some projects require transportation. I'm thinking of the art museum and their art mobile vans, or if you have to rent a bus or whatever it is. Marketing and promotion. Are you doing flyers? Are you, it could be printed materials. It could be you're gonna spend some advertising, a little bit on Facebook or Instagram to help get the word out. Like Hendrik said, Google ads, that's great. Oh, and I have printed materials here. So marketing might be the design of that, the design of those. So flyers, posters, programs, all of those types of things would be eligible. Other would be anything else that we did not have in the expenses. And that's a good one. Permits, because that does cost money. And then, administrative costs up to 10% of your budget. You can, which we recommend for everyone. Everyone should put a 10% of your project here, because that kind of covers your miscellaneous. It covers your, it could cover a portion of your staff time if you have a bookkeeper, all of these different administrative costs. So put in 10% of your cost there. Now, we have this automatically adding up. So you shouldn't have to add anything. This should automatically add your total costs there, right? Your income source are, the first one is, how much are you asking for this New Bedford Creative Grant? And it is pending because you haven't received it yet. Additional grants. This is where you would want to put, a lot of people receive New Bedford Cultural Council grants. This is if you've received one of those, and you won't know by the time you apply for this. So that would be pending. And you would put, Hendrik, you would not put that there because then it won't add up. So you only want to put a number in that section, but in the confirmed pending, that's like your notes. So yeah, so that is exactly what you would do, is put New Bedford Local Cultural Council pending, and you might list some others there. And then we have some other types of income for you to be considering to do your project. Sponsorships, in-kind contributions. So these would be like, Domino's is going to give you free pizza for your workshop. You would put the value of the pizza in that section. Or someone is donating their time. Well, what does their hourly rate usually cost if they're donating their time to support your project? And then the last ones are donations, which would be like individual donations or other donations. And then sales, if you have merch, you might be selling t-shirts or who knows what. Ticket sales, which we don't recommend so much for these grants because we want to make them accessible. But if you were to do ticket sales, this is where you would put it. And then your total revenue automatically adds up. Here is my biggest tip for getting a high score in this section. Make sure your expenses equal your revenue. So whatever your expenses are, so Hendrik will have to adjust because we're kind of working this out on live with all of you here right now. But you would have to go back and just make sure your total costs equal your total revenue. Your total expenses or costs equal your total revenue or income. And it doesn't have to, actually, we'll address that in a little bit. So, work it out. See 33,050, 3,050, it matches. Yay. All right. Once that's done, and we have some tips here that I've reviewed, but you might want to read those later. You're going to scroll down to the next one. So the dollar amount requested, what you're going to put in here has to be between $1,500 and $10,000. Now, it should match what you just put up above in the budget. Can you scroll up, Hendrik? It should match what you put in your New Bedford Creative Grant. Make sure you check that, okay? So 1,500, you're requesting 1,500. The next amount you want to put is your dollar amount for the total cost of the project. Now, some projects may cost more than $10,000. This is the total cost of your entire project, not just the amount requested from this grant. Some of you may be requesting the same amount for this grant as the total cost of your project. So you can only do this project if you get the total amount you're requesting of this grant. So it has to be a minimum of 1,500 because that's the minimum of our grant, but it may exceed 10,000 if your project budget includes other funding sources. So this is where all of those other income come into play. Is your project scalable? Yes or no? Can your project be adjusted if you are awarded less than the full amount you've requested? Some grant applications may not receive the full amount, so think carefully about how your project could be scaled down or whether you could secure alternate sources of funding to maintain the project's goals. So this is a highly competitive grant program. A quarter to a third, so 25% to 30% of people who apply are awarded funding. And of those 25 to 30%, usually a handful, like 1 to 3 projects are awarded they're what they requested. So those are your top scored applications. And it's the reality of living in a really amazing, culturally vibrant city with many talented people who have fabulous ideas. So, but it is a reality. So please think about that. Because if you say no and you're on the cusp of the scoring, whether you get funded or not, then we move to the next project who can be scaled. So please think carefully about that. The additional materials is also super important, and we have expanded this so that you can attach up to 6 files. So right here, Hendrik has 1 photo, but he can attach more files if he so chooses. And this we've also done a wide array of types. Now this is all different types of Word documents. It is all different types of photo formats as well as video formats. So you can upload video and audio, I believe. And here is where you want to demonstrate to the review committee that you are reliable for implementing the project that you are proposing. Okay? So then once you're all ready to go, you would submit if you are done. As you can see, this little green checkbox right now says last saved a minute ago. So submittable will save as you go. However, we do recommend that you build out your grant application in a separate document that is saved on your laptop or in the cloud or wherever it is, and not write out your application in submittable, because yes, it does save, but every now and then you don't want to be, it disappears and you lose your what you wrote. And I say this from personal experience. Yeah, if the internet cuts off is what Hendrik said. So that's a really good point, that it doesn't save and then you go back and I'm like, okay, I just wrote that whole thing and I lost it. Now I need to recreate it. Again, personal experience. Don't do what I did. So save it in a separate file, and you have until Monday, November 10th. This is a somewhat similar application to the local cultural council application that is intentional because we don't want to make it overly difficult. If you are applying to the local cultural council programs or any other grant, um, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to just kind of copy and paste, maybe reword some things a little bit, and apply to our program as well. So that is it. You would click submit, and once you submit, then we are notified, and then we can begin. Even if you're submitting before the deadline, we start assigning reviewers to applications as soon as they start coming in. So if you can get it in early, even if it's a couple days early, we would be able to start assigning those to reviewers and they'll start scoring your applications. The timeline for so that is it. And I should pause to see if anyone has any questions that I can answer here. Thank you all for hanging in there with me this whole time. I appreciate it. Anyone on Zoom have any questions? All right. What questions do we usually get? Or do you usually get? Copy all of the content that is in the submittable application. So you should be able to just scroll down, copy everything that's in the submittable application, paste it into a separate document. If you use Microsoft Word, or if you're in Google Docs, or some other type of text format, and work through your answers to these questions in that separate document, and do that first. And then you can copy your answers, paste it into the submittable, and then you'll be good to go. This is the first time we have a lower word count, so you will need to be more succinct for those of you who have in the past provided many paragraphs of content. That is a burden for the reviewers who are reading through 30 upwards of 30 applications each. So that's why we've done that this way this year. We're always experimenting with something to try to make it work a little bit better. There's also something that I was gonna say. Yeah, people are shocked when we say to use AI, but it has helped. It can help edit, it can help clear language that might not be as clear as you would think. Um, if you don't have someone other than you read it through, you want to have separate eyes on it. And if so, you don't have those couple additional people to provide comments and say, hey, look, this sentence doesn't seem clear to me. I think you can say it a little bit different. Copy and paste it into Chat GPT or Google, whatever. There's so many of them. Um, and see what happens. And then some of it, you might be like, yeah, this is a great way to say it. Would this be how I say it? If not, then adjust. Um, but it is a new-ish tool for everyone to use. So, we actually do just try it out, see if it works, great. If it doesn't work, then don't use it. And then make sure you have, because this has also happened, if you are the type of person who is going to be submitting their application on Monday, November 10th at 11 p.m., and some technical glitch happens, there's no one to help. So please, if you fall into that category, I used to. I have changed my ways recently, but I used to be one, I'm going to submit when it's due. Uh, for you, your deadline is Friday. Make it Friday so that if a technical glitch happens, you have all Monday to call me or Hendrik and be like, I tried uploading I have a video and it wasn't working, and this really is going to support my application. What can you do? Or um, you know, 5 of 6 of my attachments aren't working, or I need more than that's not going to work because we only have 2. So the property owner permission, it only has 2, but I have 3. Well, we'll probably say combine into one PDF all of your documents, and we can help you with that. So please, because every single time this happens, there's usually a small number, 2, 3, 4 people who are devastated because they've missed the deadline. Um, this is an automatic deadline. We're going to be, well, I probably won't be asleep, but we're not going to be available to help at 11:30 p.m. on Monday. But we have it, we do it that way so that everyone has that additional few hours if you are last minute that you can get it in. But please, we hate answering those calls. We are not making any exceptions. We cannot extend the deadline. The deadline is the deadline because we're assigning them, and there's a deadline for the reviewers so that we can get everything scored, figure out who's scoring within funding range, and divvy up the money, and then we can go into contracts with those who are awarded. We usually announce uh sometime in February or March. Even if your projects take place in January, we're not announcing to the public until then. So if you are awarded a grant, it would be what we call embargoed until we make the public announcement. And then everyone has a great time implementing their projects in 2026, hopefully.
Okay. The application is about as straightforward as it gets, and I'm somebody who has done grants outside of here. Been turned down for grants and been accepted for grants. Some of the Margot is correct with saying the using AI to polish up your narrative and maybe even the community benefit so that it does fit is a good idea. Having somebody else read it over as well. You have to remember that the reviewers are human beings. We don't funnel these reviews through AI. So reminding yourself that a human being is reading it should help you shape it in a way that it sounds exciting, right? So that it engages the reviewer as well. Um, that's one of the best pieces of advice that I can give people. Whenever I've done a narrative for something, I always tell them where I started, where I want to go with where I'm at and where I want to go with this grant and what it will do going forward after the grant is over, or what the resonating energy after it's done will be, or what I hope for it to be. And that's a good way to structure it, beginning, middle, and end. Um, the other thing is don't some people are like, yeah, my project is scalable, so I'll just scale my budget up so that if they give me less, it still falls within what I want to get. Don't do that. Be honest with what you need and what you hope to get, and don't adjust your budget up just to make up for the idea that you might not be one of the people that gets fully funded. Um, Grants are extremely competitive, and there's always an opportunity after the grants are funded, whether I mean, usually we hold these open for people who don't get funded. There's an open set of hours that we can schedule, right? We can make a meeting for it to go over your grant and what we think could have been better. Um, and sometimes that just turns out to be that that other people scored much higher. It wasn't that you wrote a bad grant, but that the other grants were just scored higher. When we assign the grants to the reviewers, we usually do 3 reviewers per each grant. So it's not one person looking at it and saying, I don't like this idea, right? But to always remember that these are human beings and that you want to engage them with what you're writing, because they're going to be reviewing 30 grants. So you want to make sure that yours pops out. Furthermore, the additional material, the supplemental materials are some of the most underrated part. It's the most underrated part of any application for a grant. It provides proof of concept. It lets the reviewer and everybody else know that this is something that you can do and that you've done it. So providing pictures of you completing projects similar to this, are the grants, other big projects, videos, your if you had a write-up, like if a newspaper or a blog or you had an interview about that, those things provide proof of concept that you can get this done. Because some projects are just really ambitious, and it's not that they can't be done, but we want to make sure that this is going to get done in a way that is that works out for everyone. Doing your part to provide high definition pictures, high definition videos, some write-ups will take it a lot further than you could imagine. Good visuals help. Again, these are human beings looking at these, so we want to make sure that we're creating the best impression possible. And if you need some advice beforehand, like Margot said 1,000 times, you can reach out to myself, Hendrik Hernandez Resto, here at the EDC, and I'll be an open book, right? I can absolutely tell you what might work, what might not work, right? But still, within that realm, a lot of that information is there. And we've done the best that we can to lay it out as plainly as possible. So that's my pieces of advice as somebody who's applied for grants and somebody who has managed grants. Remember, human beings are part of it. I want to thank you all for your time this afternoon. This was a great session. Also, I'd like to thank our funders, the City of New Bedford, the National Endowment for the Arts, Barr Foundation, Bristol County Savings Bank, and South Coast Community Foundation for making this possible. Please be sure to visit our website, newbedfordcreative.org, and join our free creative directory. This is the list we use to promote on our social media throughout the year. Make sure to add your events, galleries, exhibitions, or more to this calendar page that is linked to South Coast Today. We want our creatives to excel, and we are here to help. Join us for our next session, Grant Writing Made Simple with Dawn Salerno, Tuesday, October 7th from 12:30 to 1:30 via Zoom or in person here at 1213 Purchase Street in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Thank you all and have a great day.